ENFJs, this is why you are struggling and how to fix it. So ENFJs are known as the advocate. I know that some websites will confuse them with the INFJ because advocate was also a nickname given to INFJs, but I would say that ENFJs are the true advocates. They are the motivator, the encourager, the optimist that always believe that there is a better path to society, people having potential, and really seeing the best in people. And so, as the encourager, the one that sees potential before people see themselves, there is a lot that ENFJs have to deal with that a lot of people don't notice. Because ENFJs have extroverted feeling as their hero or their first function, they are often the emotional glue to a lot of the relationships they have in their lives, whether it's at work or through families. But honestly, if you really try to dig deep and understand the ENFJ, you would know that a lot of times they're very exhausted being that glue that harmonizes people. So it's not that they are showing physical symptoms of fatigue or tiredness, but it's more of the emotional drain that they get from to put everything together for everyone. So if you're watching this and you are ENFJ thinking, why do I feel so drained when I'm supposed to make people feel good? This video is for you. So with more awareness, there's more development. And so if you're new to this series, check out my playlist. I did specific for each MBTI, the 3 reasons why they're struggling and how to fix it in a practical way. So some are mindset shifts, some are just reframing. And of course, there are practical tips, baby steps we can take in order to become our better self. So no matter what MBTI you are, there's always that blind spot and the weakness or the trigger point that can be healed, that can be worked on. That's the whole intention of the video. So ENFJs, how can you do things without hardening your heart and at the same time show leadership without going overboard? How do you lead with heart and mind? Reason number 1 that you are struggling is that you over-identify as being the strong one. This is a stereotype, but the stereotype is so true and that it's kind of sad. Because ENFJs, they are naturally very encouraging. I would say that the natural born leaders and really know how to make people feel good. Therefore, they become the reliable one. They become that person that people lean on. They listen, they guide, they hold space, and they stabilize the room. This has become their identity. When it becomes your identity, it becomes very hard to rest. They associate it so deeply with their ego. This is who they think they are. If they are not doing that and they don't see that happening, they feel like they are forsaking themselves and they don't just feel like themselves, which is pretty harmful. You feel responsible for the morale of other people and you want to have harmony and you want to always make things better. So when things don't go as planned or don't go as good as how it should be, which is similarly to how ISFJ, ISTJ can be too with their introverted sensing, but I guess for ENFJs it hits harder because they see the emotions of other people, the relationships of other people are not intact. It can truly drain them and they would quietly blame themselves when they have nothing to be blamed for. ENFJs, what you need to hear is, being strong all the time is not the same as being healthy. So here are some insights to their cognitive function because this is truly the only way you can understand MBTI on a deeper and more accurate level. It's to understand their cognitive function. So because their dominant function is extroverted feeling, it makes them deeply attuned to the needs of other people, not necessarily themselves, because they don't really have introverted feeling in their first 4 function. They do have in their shadow stack, but as someone that is more geared or attuned to extroverted feeling, they tend to neglect their own feeling a lot of times, and sometimes even maybe blind spot or becomes very paranoid with it. Coupled with the fact that they have a parent function of introverted intuition, this means that they're always having vision on how things should be because it's more of a pessimistic function. Parent function, essentially, it's more guarded. It's trying to nag you to do the things that you should be doing. When the name says parent function, you kind of can give it its meaning. it's a parent that's nagging at you, what are things that you should do, so you can become a bit critical with it. When you have extroverted feeling together with introverted intuition, you're always thinking about how other people should be feeling or how people are feeling, the harmony, relationship with other people, and how things should be. It can be very dangerous if you go on this unhealthy loop. Why? Because you anticipate needs before they're spoken. You kind of project or predict the needs that the people you care about want, but they may not necessarily want it because it's just a prediction. Sometimes it's so good that people feel like you are ahead of them, that you know them more than they know their own needs, which sometimes can be a brilliant thing that you do. But when you do it too often, sometimes it may not be very accurate, because at the end of the day, even though you have introverted intuition, it doesn't mean you're a fortune teller. Not even INTJs or INFJs that have this hero function will be at times be wrong. And so sometimes it's good to take a step back and be in the present moment and speak to people, connect with them in terms of reality. You overfunction emotionally because of this loop of NI, and then you suppress all your exhaustion. So some signs that this is happening for you: you feel guilty resting. You keep fulfilling people's needs. You keep taking care of the mental well-being of other people, but then you neglect yours. When you feel bad and you want to rest, you feel guilty. And you struggle to say no without explaining yourself. Sometimes it's just boundaries, right? You don't want to do something, but you need to explain yourself because you're afraid that if you don't explain yourself, people are going to change their impression, or they're going to feel like you are not being nice. And that is very important to you. And then, of course, you feel resentful, but you are actually ashamed of the resentment. Sometimes you draw the boundaries or are truly physically tired, and then you maybe reject something or tell someone something they are not meant to hear, and then you resent yourself. But then when you have resentment, you also feel ashamed of it. It becomes this very toxic emotional cycle that goes on within you. I don't think any ENFJ deserves that, because there's always the better side to you apart from just pleasing people. Finally, you don't feel seen even though you're always present. So this is because you see so much in other people that you don't notice when people are seeing you. Before you put on a mask for somebody else, you need to put on a mask for yourself. So I think ENFJs, this is really a question. I think especially people with extroverted feeling, the ones that I've coached at least, I know that their greatest struggle is, how do I stop pleasing people? How do I stop not giving boundaries and really taking care of myself? That's always been their problem. To be honest, how do you fix it is to redefine your strength. Think of strength as not an emotional self-sacrifice. You don't have to emotionally sacrifice yourself in order to show strength. That is not the only meaning of strength. Strength is also not about fixing everyone. Some people, you just have to let it take its toll and let them fix themselves. You are not the caretaker of everybody. It is not your responsibility, because at the end of the day, if you don't take care of yourself, whatever that you're doing to take care of other people would be meaningless. And that is the objective truth. And especially when you're carrying invisible responsibility and you carry resentment towards the person that you have a responsibility for, and then you feel ashamed of it, at the end of the day, I just want you to think of it in the long run. How is it going to do good to your mental well-being? And when you don't feel good mentally, emotionally, whatever that you're going to try to take care of and give out the love and care to the people that you care about, it's not going to be genuine. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for ENFJs that don't really have any form of leadership for themselves, I think the first self-love action that you're going to take is take up some course about self-leadership, understand what self-leadership is. When you're able to take care of yourself, be in charge of yourself, then you know what it means to truly take care of other people in a more sustainable way. So maybe a reflection question for all ENFJs, if this reason number one resonates well with you, is ask yourself, if I weren't responsible for everybody's emotion, what would I need right now? Push aside everybody's emotion when you don't have the responsibility to take care of it. what would you be doing and what do you actually need? Okay, now reason number 2, you confuse empathy with self-abandonment. So because ENFJs feel deeply, similarly to ISFJs, ESFJ, INFJ, of course, because of the extroverted feeling, whether it's a hero function or a more critical parent function, ENFJs feel deeply, but the problem isn't empathy. It is over-merging yourself with other people's issues and emotion. So you don't just understand others' emotion. That's not just your superpower. Your superpower sometimes, which is quite poisonous to you, is that you absorb people's emotion. So there's always this saying that if you see a FI user walking into the room and a FI user, for example, ENTJ, and because ENTJ has introverted feeling as their inferior function, means they don't really care much about their feelings. Sometimes when they don't feel good, it can come off in a very temperamental or lashing out kind of way. When an ENTJ feels bad and they show up in a room where there's an ENFJ, the ENFJ can instantly feel how bad the FI user of the ENTJ is at the moment, because they absorb the emotions of other people. So they are very drained most of the time. So the things that goes on in ENFJ's head when they're absorbing people's emotion is that they will always say, oh no, but they need me. I don't like this feeling, but they need me. And they always have this saying, they're going through a lot, I have to be there for them. Is there some way that I can sacrifice myself so that they know that I'm there for them? Even when it's the most toxic relationship, sometimes they just say, I just can't leave them because they are absorbed, and like I said, they over-merge themselves to the feelings or the emotions of other people. So here's the hard truth, ENFJs, for this reason, is that you are loyal to people's potential at the expense of your present self. So when there's empathy, and the empathy has no boundaries, this ultimately becomes self-betrayal. Again, empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. So let's understand why this is happening. Because ENFJs, your extroverted feeling wants harmony, and your NI is seeing what someone could become. So you tolerate things that are not at the present moment. So you wait, you endure, and you keep yourself optimistic and you hope. Now, being hopeful and optimism is not bad, but you need to sometimes get in touch with reality to know that it's kind of going beyond the line. So you don't just hold on space for people to grow, especially when you start seeing that you are shrinking. So it's okay to hold that space, and you want people to develop themselves, and you want to sacrifice yourself in a way for them to do that. But when you neglect the parts where you are shrinking yourself, I think that is when it becomes dangerous. Your empathy will become a double-edged sword. So what are some signs that this is happening for you? Is that you feel emotionally heavy after interactions. A lot of introverts would resonate with this. So you'll be very surprised that ENFJs will also have these moments. That's why it's not as easy to say that extroverts are social butterfly and introverts are just shy people. You struggle to identify your own needs, and you feel responsible for other people's well-being, especially their healing journey. You are just a character there, which you are not supposed to be. So how do you fix this? Is really practicing the healthy kind of empathy, the clean empathy. And hopefully it's not performative empathy or compassion. Clean empathy sounds like you care, but you also know that this is not your problem. You can support people without sacrificing yourself. There is a kind of balance, a kind of rules in place. I know that it's not ideal for someone like ENFJs, but it's good to really have your do's and don'ts. When it goes a bit overboard, you have to identify those limits. And finally, compassion doesn't require proximity. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is boundaries doesn't make you a cold person. It is when you overdo it. Boundaries is there for you so that you can be sustainable. Reason number 3. You lose yourself in roles and expectations. So ENFJs, let's go deeper into this. Why is this such a struggle for you? ENFJs often struggle not because they lack identity, but because they play too many roles. For different people, you are the leader, you are the mentor, you are the parent, you are the supporter, you are the peacemaker, you are the motivator. Somewhere along the lines, you stop asking, who am I when I'm not helping? As long as you're not helping people, you feel like you are not yourself or you have lost yourself. This creates a quiet identity crisis, which is quite bad. So this is definitely a red flag for all ENFJs. Just remember that you are more than the role that you play, ENFJs. Here are some cognitive insights, right? Let's talk about your inferior function, which is introverted thinking. This is where it seeks truth accuracy. So it governs self-definition, internal clarity, and boundaries. So you're seeking that truth and you're very insecure about what you think is true. Therefore, you're very careful and fearful of it. When TI, your introverted thinking, is underdeveloped, this is when you struggle to separate who you are from what you do. And then you rely on external feedback to define your worth. So therefore, you look like you're seeking validation from people all the time because you don't have that within you and feel lost when you're not needed. So when people don't pay attention to you, they don't ask you for help, they don't ask you what you think, you feel like you have lost your sense of worth, which is extreme. So what are some signs? Is that you feel empty when no one needs you, when in fact you should be celebrating your introversion, so that's when you recharge. But instead of doing that, you feel like something is wrong. If you ask any of the introverts, they'll be so happy when they don't have anyone around them needing them. You question your purpose during quiet seasons. So whenever you're not there helping people, when people don't need you, you feel like you're not in the right place, you're just depressed. You feel anxious when things slow down. This is one of the most obvious signs. You don't know what you want, but you know what everybody wants. I guess how you can fix this, ENFJs, think about it with your internal authority. Who is the boss of you? That's why going back to the very first reason, number one, it's practice self-leadership. What is your self-worth that is not tied to other people? So maybe some reflection question that is good for journaling, that is good for your self-development is, I would say, ask yourself, what do I believe without considering other people? It is you yourself that is not attached to other people's. Your own belief. What do I want? What do you truly want? Even if it means that it's going to disappoint someone, be bold and courageous enough to write it down. That is how you're going to gain your power. Finally, what would I choose if no one benefited from it but me? Let's say you have to be a little bit selfish. How is that going to help you? And why is that healthy for you? This isn't being selfish. This is just self-integration. To wrap up this video, your gift is real. Your warm leadership and insights is really what makes you shine and really puts you in a place where a lot of MBTI types can look up to you when it comes to optimism, serving other people, being more self-serving. Your warmth, leadership, and insights really change lives. Think about this. Your growth begins when you stop pouring endlessly to other people. It is not just the outward motion that matters. It is how you start turning the wisdom inwards. So again, everything starts from within, right? Lead from within yourself. Lead yourself first, and then you care without having to abuse yourself or not having boundaries. It's being able to care in a healthy way. Again, empathy, clean empathy. And finally, it's to build an identity that is beyond usefulness. It's not just about other people needing you, but there are other examples of identity that people can respect, people can be admired, look up to without you being a function or being a use for other people. And if you're watching this thinking, I want to understand myself deeply, my patterns, my shadow, and how to grow and become my better self, I do offer a one-to-one online consultation. We can do this in multiple sessions. I create programs, customize coaching sessions for different MBTI types, particularly for those types struggling to lead themselves, to balance their thinking and their feeling. So in these kind of sessions, we will explore your strengths, your blind spot as an ENFJ, your shadow pattern under stress, what are some coping mechanisms when you're in the grip, when you're stressed out, how do you develop your inferior function. Ultimately, it's how to have more self-awareness, on your MBTI type, and then how do you take little actions to get yourself to become better and really unlocking your potential. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. If you know any ENFJs, please share this with them. I appreciate every little gestures of liking, commenting, sharing, because this really helps my channel a lot. And because I plan to do a lot of these videos helping people on a personal level. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.